Let's turn a bunch of bright, bold fabrics into a triangle quilt that'll make your friends say wow. Hey everybody, it's me, Angela Walters, your favorite midnight quilter. You know, where we turn fabric chaos into quilted masterpieces. And as you know, quilt blocks come in all shapes and sizes, from squares to rectangles to even those funky hexagons. But tonight, we're diving into the world of triangles. Yeah, I'm talking about those pointy shapes that are a blast to make and perfect for showing off your show-stopping, drool-worthy fabrics. Because nothing screams fun like cutting triangles in the midnight hour. So grab your snack, your piecing potion, and let's get to it. You know that feeling when you have a gorgeous print that you just have to have? I swear, sometimes I feel them whispering my name. And today, we're gonna give those bold fabrics a starring role with my Horizon Quilt pattern. I designed this quilt pattern especially for those prints that are show-stopping beautiful, but you're not sure how to use them in an actual quilt. Plus, I've designed the pattern so it has 2 different size options, giving you even more flexibility. And for tonight's quilt, I'm gonna be using prints from my brand new Moon Blossom fabric collection. And to get that multicolored magic, I've picked 8 of my favorite coordinating prints. These prints are bold and saturated and full of dark, moody purples, bright pinks, a touch of sherbet, and even a darker navy. And then to really help the fabrics pop off the quilt top, I'm pairing them with not 1, not 2, but 3 different background fabrics, giving you a bright, bold, and undeniably beautiful quilt. With a soft aqua, a beautiful lush lilac, and a deep kind of teal, this is really gonna help show off all those beautiful prints. Now, if you wanna make the same quilt as I am or get your hands on the quilt pattern, I have the kit and the pattern available for sale on our website. And if pink and purplicious isn't really your fabric jam, I've put together a different color option using these beautiful fabrics. These prints from my Petal and Pebble fabric collection are soft and muted with beautiful greens, soft sea foams, and taupes and grays. It's perfect for a soothing quilt while still looking amazing. So to get any of these products, all you have to do is click the link in the description box below. Well, now that I have my fabrics picked out, it's time to start cutting them up into my triangles. Since all these blocks are triangles, I'm gonna have to go about cutting them a little differently. I'm gonna take all the print strips, open them up, and cut them using template A. This is a template that comes with the pattern, and if you wanted, you could cut it out with some template plastic so that you have a nice plastic piece that you can then cut your strip up into those triangles. But if you wanna go the easy route, you can use the Creative Grid's 30-degree ruler to cut these out. This ruler is so big, but it's so awesome, and it's gonna help us quickly cut out these triangles for our blocks. All I have to do is position the ruler so that the point is aligned with one side, and I'm gonna cut up one side and then the next to give me my triangle. Since I'm right-handed, I like to cut from the right side of the ruler, so I'm gonna slide it all the way over and cut along this side. That's gonna turn the edge of my strip into the right angle to cut out those triangles. Then I'm gonna take my ruler, flip it around, align it with the edge of the fabric, make sure that that reference line is correct on both sides, and then cut my triangle out. I mean, that is so fast and easy, definitely makes the ruler worth it. Plus, it has the Creative Grid's grip on the back, so once you have it in place, it does not move. Using this ruler, you can cut out triangles up to 19.5 inches long. I mean, that is some big blocks. It sure makes cutting up these strips quick and fun. But to make it go even faster, I'm gonna live a little bit on the wild side and cut 2 fabrics at the same time. Cutting triangles might take a little bit longer than a normal quilt, but it makes up for it when we get to the piecing because it goes together so fast. I'm also going to cut up the solid strips into triangles as well, using that template to cut out my triangles in alternating directions. And even though it's super easy to use this ruler, I still need to make sure I'm taking my time because I don't want those angles to get off. So every time I position the ruler, I'm just making sure that's lined up over here, it's straight along that reference line, and then I can cut. This ruler is pretty awesome. If you don't have one, you can get one from our online store. Just click the link in the description box below. So I'm gonna keep on going, cutting out all my fabrics, both prints and solids, into these triangles, and then we'll start putting the quilt together. We're gonna start by grabbing a pile of print triangles and a pile of solid background triangles. I'm basically going to sew these into one long row, alternating between the background fabric and the print fabrics. But to make it a little bit more easier, a little bit more manageable, I'm gonna start by sewing them together in pairs of 2. So grabbing my print triangle, I'm going to take my background triangle and alternate the direction like this. Then sew them together to create my grouping. But here is the tricky part. I think as quilters, we naturally want to line up the corners and make them match, but these actually have to be offset just a little bit. And here's why. When I place them right sides together, after they're sewn, when I fold them back, it needs to be even on the top and bottom. And if I just try to kind of eyeball that or line them up by making those points match, it's not going to quite end up straight. And eventually I'm going to have a quilt that's a little bit more curved. Now, is that the end of the world? Definitely not, but I want these triangle blocks to look pretty without chopping off that top corner. To show you what this looks like, I'm actually gonna use a little bit of marking to make sure it lines up. So grabbing a ruler and my marking tool, I'm gonna lay it on there with my 1/4 inch seam and then just place a little dot at that 1/4 inch line. So I'm a 1/4 inch in and a 1/4 inch down, and when I pull it off, you can see my little dot right there. I'm gonna do the same on the other one, lining up that 1/4 inch and marking it with my marking tool. Now when I put these blocks right sides together, I'm gonna match up those 2 dots, and that's gonna give me my perfect alignment. Then I'm gonna pin or clip those pieces together, just to help keep them from shifting as I sew. Now when I flip it around, we're gonna see how those corners are offset just a bit. Even though it looks oh so wrong right now, it's actually gonna result in a beautifully pieced triangle. So once I have those together, I'm just gonna take it to my sewing machine and sew it with that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then, once they're sewn together, I'm going to gently, oh so gently, press them. And when you're done, you have your first pair of triangles sewn together. And I'm going to keep doing that, grabbing my blocks, sewing them together just like this. And right now, I don't have to really overthink which prints I'm using. I'm just grabbing a print, grabbing a background, and sewing them together. Now later on, when I have all my pairings sewn together, I'll do a little bit more adjustment of where the prints are going. But for right now, I'm just sewing them together in groups of 2. But one thing you really do need to pay attention to is I want to make sure that all my pairs are the same. So I'm always going to put the print on the left side and the solid on the right side. That's going to make sure that they all go together exactly how they're supposed to. With all the beautiful prints in this quilt, it's going to look striking no matter what. So just try to get it as close as you can and move on. Nobody wants any stress with their quilting. One thing I really love about this pattern is that none of these prints are actually going to touch. It makes this pattern perfect for all those bright, bold prints that you're not quite sure what to do with. And then once my pairs are sewn together, I'm going to press them just like I did earlier. Again, being careful not to stretch out those sides. And this is the perfect time to fondle all your beautiful prints that you're using in your quilt. Once I have enough of the pairs sewn together, I'm going to arrange them in my row. This is one of those patterns that you get to decide where the fabrics go. So have fun arranging the blocks and finding that perfect fabric placement that makes your heart sing. But once you have those prints exactly where you want them, it's time to start sewing them together. And we're going to do that the same way as we did the blocks. So grabbing 2 of my pairs and placing one right sides together with the other. But I want my points to be as pointy as possible, so I'm going to mark out that 1/4 inch dot and align them up. And then doing the same with the other block. But for the first time, we're going to be dealing with points on both sides, so I'm going to take a second and mark both of those out. So this time I have those reference points on the top and bottom of my blocks. Just taking a second to make sure those points are matched up, clipping it in place before it moves, and doing the same on the other side. Now it's when we press the blocks open that we'll see just how close, or close-ish, we got to making those work. Perfect, and this is exactly what I want to see. I want to see my little points with about a 1/4 inch spacing for the top. That means when I sew my rows together, it'll be exactly where it needs to be. And the other one is pretty close as well. Not too bad. So now that I have that down, I'm going to keep sewing until I have my first row all together, marking my dots, sewing them together, and pressing them open. You know, if marking all these dots seems like not a lot of fun to you, you can just kind of wing it, and depending on how they turn out, you can say it's an improvisationally pieced triangle quilt. Either way, it's going to look amazing. So far, I'm 2 for 2. My points are a 1/4 inch away from the top, meaning when I sew them together, it's going to be perfectly pieced, making me so very happy. So I'm going to keep doing this, sewing my blocks together in groups, sewing the groups together until I have the whole row finished. And you know I'm trying really hard to have pretty perfect piecing when I'm actually using my 1/4 inch foot. Normally I like to use my walking foot, but for this one, I want to make sure it's as precise as possible. Okay, this one, not so perfect. I mean, I'm gonna keep it, but I'm just not gonna show you up close how bad that looks. What are you gonna do? Sometimes it just doesn't quite come out right. I mean, when it comes to quilting, we've all been there, right? We've all sewn a seam wrong or had a point not come out perfect. The key is just to keep calm and keep sewing. Every little mistake is just a happy accident that lets the quilter's personality shine through. I'm gonna keep on sewing, sewing, sewing until I have my first row finished. Now I know you're watching thinking, gee, Angela, you would never ever make a piecing mistake. You're so good at what you do. Well, actually, we know that's not true. And I want to show you what it looks like when you don't do it quite right. So as I'm sewing my row together, I notice that this block right here is shifted down a little bit from the other. And it's the same on the other side. So basically when I was lining up those sections, I didn't have it quite right. Either that or it shifted while I was sewing and it kind of offset it just a little too much. Now, I cannot believe that these words are about to come out of my mouth. I think I'm going to take out that seam and try it again. Now, of course, some of you watching are like, of course, yeah. But for me, I'm usually like, you know what, it'll be fine. But I really want these to be even so the whole quilt goes together better. So I'm gonna grab my seam ripper and my piecing potion for a little emotional support and fix this part of the row before I move on. Gosh, it's been too long since I've even seen a seam ripper. I don't even know if I know how to work this. Sometimes having your very best quilt means a little bit of seam ripping and correcting. After a little bit of sewing, a little bit of grumbling, and fixing a couple of those pesky seams, my first row is finished. And you can tell this is gonna be a nice big quilt. One thing I wanna point out real quick is on both ends, I have my piece of background fabric like this. So before I do anything else, I'm gonna trim those up and then we're gonna add a border on the top. So grabbing my rotary mat, my cutter, and my ruler, I'm gonna trim off the excess fabric right here. But as I trim it off, I have to remember that eventually I may wanna add some binding around this. So I'm gonna make sure I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance right here and then trim off the excess. Of course, if you wanted to, you could wait to the end to do the whole quilt, but I find it's a little bit easier to do it on each row. Once that's trimmed up, I'm gonna grab my background fabric that's gonna add a little bit of border and just lay it out on top of the row. This little bit of background fabric is gonna make these triangles look like they're floating in the background area and really show off those beautiful fabrics. So I'm going to very carefully fold my fabric over and clip it in place just to make sure that it stays right where it needs to be and that I'm not stretching it when I sew it together. Then once it's all clipped in place, I'm gonna take it to my sewing machine, sew it together, and press it, and I'll have the first section of my quilt. See, like I said, it's not that bad. These triangles are actually really easy once you get the hang of it. And after a quick press, I have my first section ready to go. We can see my beautiful triangles of all the different prints and how that background strip kind of helps hold it all together. And here I have my second section made exactly the same way with my print triangles and my border strip. The only difference is that I'm using a different background fabric. So let me get this sewed together and I'll show you what it looks like. So now I have the first two sections of my quilt sewn together. Now, even though I've been laying this out in rows, this is actually the length of the quilt. So I'm gonna turn it to the side And then I'm gonna lay out the rest of the quilt, which is pieced exactly the same way, using the different background colors in our kit. I really love how it makes the individual prints shine. Now all I need to do is sew these together and you'll be able to see the whole finished quilt top. So I'm gonna get to that and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm finished. I love how you can take just one shape and make a bright, stunning quilt. Now, normally on the Midnight Quilter, I like to quilt the quilts on my sewing machine, but this time I'm gonna switch it up and machine quilt it on my Longarm quilting machine. I'm gonna use this gorgeous print as the backing fabric, and I've selected a few thread colors that are gonna look perfect with the quilting. So let me grab all my goodies, get this quilted, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all finished. And this quilt is finished. And just like that, I turned a handful of bright triangles into a wow-worthy quilt. It's proof that pointy shapes can be your best friend. What can I say? When it comes to quilting, more is more. So I thought, why not add some swirls and some pebbles and some other beautiful designs to the quilt? I used thread colors that match the fabric so that the quilting wouldn't outshine the fabric prints, but still look amazing. I just love that this quilt is so bright and striking with just one block over and over again. Now check out the second version of the quilt that I made. I love how the soft, beautiful prints show up against those beautiful, solid backgrounds, and quilting this was just as much fun as quilting the other one. I created some geometric motifs in the very center of some of the blocks, and used a curvy, gorgeous plume feather in others. There's just something about seeing a quilt pattern in two different fabrics. It's amazing how much the prints you choose changes the look of it. I think we can call tonight's triangle quilt a success. And if you want to be a triangle taming superstar as well, and make the bigger, bolder moon blossom version, or the smaller, more subtle petal and pebble version, don't forget you can get all the products featured in this video on our website just by clicking the link in the description box below, or by visiting quiltingismytherapy.com. Well, this wraps up this episode of the Midnight Quilter, but don't despair. I'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, everybody, happy quilting.